Howard Besser, who's professor of cinema studies at New York University. He's the founding director of NYU's master program in moving image archiving and preservation, and professor emeritus at UCLA's Library School. He has taught and written about the interrelationship between moving images and public policy. In 2009, Dr. Besser was named to the Library of Congress's select list of pioneers of digital preservation. He has also been involved in the creation of several library metadata standards and has published widely on media and information technology in cultural institutions. His presentation today is The Dark Side of the Press in Cinema, Decontextualization, Sensationalism, Entertainment, and Fake News. Can we welcome Dr. Howard Besser? Thank you.
I hope that the slides work here. Can you all hear me? Is it loud enough? Now? It's okay? Okay. So most of the talks today are about the real importance of a free press. My talk is going to be about the darker side of a free press. What happens when, what has been happening in Western countries in recent years, starting with the late 20th century. So I'm going to talk first about the history and background of freedom of the press and how it's portrayed in cinema. Then I'll show clips from a 2004 documentary about a news channel in the United States and how that speaks to the kind of changes that have happened in the late 20th century. And then I'm going to show some selections from from late 20th century and 21st century films that predicted the kind of problems with the news. So first of all, freedom of the press is part of the one of the earliest proclamations by the United Nations, the Declaration of Human Rights, which says that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes the right to import information and ideas through any media. Myanmar was a British colony. Britain has an even longer history of freedom of the press. In the year 1695, Great Britain, or Britain at the time, abolished all controls on the press. Cinema usually portrays the press as heroes. Journalists inform the public. They investigate issues and problems that are not widely known. They provide tempered analysis and context to complex issues. The press exposes corruption. They encourage civic dialogue. And independent journalists are motivated by ideals, not by profit. And we'll see that in most of the films that are being shown during the Memory Conference. But in the late 20th century, the Western press began to look different. When people started getting most of their news from television and radio instead of from newspapers, journalism started looking different. It started incorporating decontextualization instead of contextualization. Instead of explaining problems, they looked at problems very much isolated from one another. The press started having very sensationalist types of news broadcasts in order to attract wider audience. In fact, the news became entertainment. News also started to become ideological and almost like propaganda in many places. We had things like lying in the news and fake news. These are the kinds of things that George Orwell predicted in his book 1984. If you remember, Orwell lived in Burma for a number of years. News broadcasts started focusing on how many people are watching and how much money can we make from the news. And journalists became subservient to the corporate owners of their their newspapers and television stations, and the motivation, subservient to the motivations of those owners. We also have media personalities that have become presidents, or in this case, Berlusconi, Prime Minister of Italy, and Donald Trump, President of the United States. Berlusconi owns one of the largest media operations in Europe, and certainly the largest in Italy. So I'm going to start with talking about a documentary film made by Robert Greenwald in 2004. It is a documentary about the Fox News Channel. This documentary showed how the Fox News Channel gives commentary instead of news, and the commentators themselves became media stars. How the commentary reflects the corporate point of view, and the channel was used as a political tool for propaganda. On Fox News, this documentary shows that arguing replaces interviewing. It's full of sensationalism, panders to fears, and it is essentially news without journalism. So just one clip from the film Outfoxed.
The real revolutionary breakthrough of Fox has been, it's eliminated journalism. I mean, that's the thing to understand. What Fox News Channel has done is it's stripped out any notion of journalism as we've traditionally understood it from its product. There is no journalism at the Fox News Channel.
Why? Listen, cut his mic.
Listen, Chad,
starter's
pistol. Let me finish.
Stop. Chad, I want to test if you're an honest individual.
All right.
Bodies
I'm sorry to cut you off. I know we're in some controversial stuff here, but my religion didn't teach me that. But thank you very much for being here.
It's a right-wing network, and you don't want to hear this stuff.
You want to do.
Not about the kid. It's about you, Jamie. Let's go. Okay. Thank you, Jamie.
About me, I'm doing. Yes.
Good night. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, sir.
Don't take your cheap little pathetic shot. I am telling you that's what
you're taking cheap little pathetic shots.
Just giving his
trying
record.
to tell you what the truth is. No, you're misrepresenting his record.
I'm telling the truth, sir. That's the truth
it.
about his record.
I understand what your position is not correct.
I'd like to hear one single. You're on satellite radio because you can't get on regular radio.
Okay, so that watching Fox News is exactly like that. This montage was in the documentary. Okay, so the rest of my talk, I'm going to show fictional films that predicted this dark side of the press. I'm going to start out with Face in the Crowd by Elia Kazan in 1957. This is about a man from the countryside, not very well educated, who becomes a media star on the radio. And he gets to the point where he wants to manipulate his audience. And he thinks that the public is stupid.
Am I? I don't. They think like I do. But they're even more stupid than I am. So I gotta think more. I'm not just an entertainer. I'm an influence, a wielder of opinion, a force. A force. Oh, if they ever heard the way that psycho really talks. Maybe I'm just a country boy. But if the president tries to stop me, I'll flood the White House with millions of telegrams.
So he's talking about his influence. If the president wants to stop him, he will get the public to rebel and send telegrams to the president. A film from 1970 starring Paul Newman, Joanne Woodward, and Anthony Perkins talks about a radio station where Paul Newman is a journalist in this radio station. The radio station is trying to manipulate the public to eliminate benefits for poor black people in the South. So here's a little conversation where Anthony Perkins, who's a social worker, is asking Paul Newman about why he does this, why the media lies like this.
But I've heard you on the radio, Mr. Reinhardt. I know that you work for WUSA. And I keep hearing that station make a lot of charges about the welfare structure in town. In fact, I heard you read an editorial about it the other day. But I just cannot understand what evidence your people could have to support such charges like the ones you make.
I couldn't tell you, friend. At 6 o'clock, I read an editorial, and at 9 o'clock, another hack reads it. It's got nothing to do with us.
I see. Oh, I see. But aren't those editorials pretty vituperative?
Yeah. That's the way it is down there.
Rana, don't put the man on. Listen, he doesn't believe anything he hears down at that station, not even the news.
You don't believe it? That must be very hard for you.
So Paul Newman takes no responsibility for reading lies on the news, unlike the normal image we have of the journalist who stands up for truth. He knows he's reading lies, and he makes no excuses for that. The next film I'm going to show a clip from is Sidney Lumet's film Network from 1976. We'll be showing this next weekend, I believe on Saturday here. It's the story of a television news program that turns into a very sensationalist program. And I won't ruin the whole film for you. Hopefully you'll all see it next week. But I'll show a couple clips of how the news is turned into entertainment. So in this clip, they're introducing the news, but there's an audience who claps. The news includes someone who can predict the future, things like that.
Three, cue announcer. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it. How do you feel? We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take this anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, the Network News Hour with Sybil the Soothsayer. Jim Webbing and it's the Emma Struth Department. Miss Matahari and her skeletons in the closets. tonight, another segment of Vox Populi. And starring the mad prophet of the airways, Howard Beale.
So here, over 40 years ago, in 1976, they were predicting the news becoming entertainment and not really news. What? Okay. The last other film that I'm going to show is a Swiss film, French Swiss film from 1976 by Alain Tanner called Mesidor. This is a film about two teenage girls who run away from home. They hitchhike through Switzerland. They are abused by men who pick them up. And at some point, they find a gun, and they use that gun to try to get some food somewhere. This film, the excerpt I will show, focuses in on a television show on Swiss TV where they hire actors to play these two girls, and they try to get the public to help capture the girls. This is now common. There are television shows that try to reenact crimes and have the public help catch horrible criminals. In this case, they're just two teenage girls who run away. But you'll see the television program.
Det traut sich, da war sie.
Tatsächlich sind die beiden jungen Mädchen, die nicht unbedingt mit Terroristen in Verbindung stehen, bewaffnet und könnten von ihrer Waffe Gebrauch machen. Diese Waffe, wir zeigen Ihnen eine genaue Kopie. Das ist kein Spielzeug und die
And now we have television shows like that now. Okay, I'm going to end with a clip from the film Network, where the man who's the star of Network starts talking about how television, and particularly television news, is turning individuals into consumers, into robots, things like that. And again, this is a film from 1976, so over 40 years ago.
Because at the bottom of all our terrified souls, we know that democracy is a dying giant, a sick, sick, dying, decaying political concept writhing in its final pain. I don't mean that the United States is finished as a world power. The United States is the richest, the most powerful, the most advanced country in the world, light years ahead of any other country. And I don't mean the communists are going to take over the world, because the communists are deader than we are. What is finished is the idea that this great country is dedicated to the freedom and flourishing of every individual in it. It's the individual that's finished. It's the single, solitary human being that's finished. It's every single one of you out there that's finished. Because this is no longer a nation of independent individuals. It's a nation of some 200-odd million transistorized, deodorized, whiter than white, steel-belted bodies, totally unnecessary as human beings and as replaceable as piston rods. Well, the time has come to say, is dehumanization such a bad word? Good or bad, that's what is so. The whole world is becoming humanoid, creatures that look human but aren't. The whole world, not just us, we're just the most advanced country, so we're getting there first. The whole world's people are becoming mass-produced, programmed, numbered, insensate things.
So the whole world is becoming mass-produced consumers with no individual thoughts. And I'll leave you with that as the final thought. My slides are available on my homepage /talks with a capital T. Thank you.